Hey, checking in with One Native Life by Richard Wagamis, a 2018 memoir, 2008 memoir, um, which is kind of a collection of small little essays, um, almost like newspaper articles, which I'll get around to. Um, this is sections 19 to 42. And yes, I am slightly struggling with the book because there's a part of me that, well, like the material is super powerful, and there's some really good kind of powerful, kind of touching personal stories here. There's also a certain pattern which I think comes from him being a newspaper guy, newspaper news guy, in that his essays are kind of reminding me of Andy Rooney. Andy Rooney probably being my main exposure to kind of the newsman personal essay done on 60 Minutes, where he'd, you ever noticed when, and just and it would like have the story observations and then kind of end with a pithy kind of bromide and one liner ending. And while I think Rich Wagamis has got a lot more stronger and more interesting material than what was probably very late era Andy Rooney, it does have that pattern, and it kind of grates on me a little bit, especially when some of the bromides at the end. And of course, now that I'm talking about it, I can't really nail, well, the one, the tabletop TV. And I think it was like, he's living in this place and he has a television. And, it seemed like the only way he could get it, like, had like rabbit ears because this is old time TVs. And like the only way he could get it to actually kind of get a signal was to actually just hold on to the antenna. And then, his body was a part of it, and then you get a picture. And he got a lot of advice from various people of like, put some tinfoil around it or put it by the window, or all that sort of stuff. And what he found was actually in this little place, he just put it on the tabletop in the very center of his home. And he back away a little bit, perfect picture, back away more, still perfect picture. This is where he got a signal. And um in this piece, which is, it's one of the weaker pieces of the thing, I would say, he kind of takes this as a thing of saying, like, this is, you need to be centered in your life, and that way you'll get the strongest signal, which is like, yeah, or that just happened to be where the signal for the TV was, and it could have been over in a corner, or you tried the tinfoil, and then the thing would be like, wear a tinfoil hat, and then you'd get your strong signal in your life as well. It was just like, that sort of shows some of the weaker parts. He does have other parts, which, especially when he is connecting with like his language, the Ojibwe language, and how that really kind of unlocks stuff for him. I can see that as really powerful stuff. Or a story where he's talking about how, him developing of like, he basically lied to get his first job, and saying like, oh, I came out of this journalism program in Ontario, and then said, well, come back at the end, at the other end of the long weekend, and we'll try stuff. And so he went to the library, and he basically educated himself. He got all the books on journalism out, and he just read through them all. And it's got that kind of grit, and kind of like, you can see why this guy was successful. I mean, there's a part of this is like, I'm successful because I had a lot of grit. There is that there, but fuck it. It's one Native guy's life, and he's fucking showing you how he's really fucking kicked ass. Um, and or interesting story of him talking about his relationship to Pierre Trudeau, and saying, like, he was really attracted to Pierre Trudeau, when he was like 13 when Trudeau kind of hit the national scene and won the Liberal Party thing, and just his like vivacity in his thing. You know, this is when he, naive, not knowing about stuff like kind of the white paper on Native affairs, and Jean Chrétien and Trudeau, and basically their kind of plans to try and kind of basically extinguish, at least this is Wagami saying, extinguish everything that was Native. And how when they brought the Constitution back to Canada, which is often celebrated by mainstream Canada as a really positive, great thing, it was seen by Native people as a real betrayal of, hey, we didn't make an agreement with the Dominion of Canada. Actually, we made an agreement with the British Crown, and bringing this back was, was a betrayal of that. But he says, like, even then, like 1983, going to be like a part of like a big kind of a news conference, and being there and standing up and asking his questions to Trudeau, and Trudeau taking him seriously and listening to him, and like, that sharp Trudeau mind. He's like, I felt like I kind of held my own, and I felt that he respected me, and that was really important to him. Which, there is a thing along here of, you can see that Richard Wagamis does have a core of insecurity, which maybe sometimes does come up in these stories where you feel like he's bolstering himself in a way that someone who is more secure with themselves wouldn't. And I mean, this is coming from a guy myself who is insecure, and sometimes that the best way to kind of to combat your insecurity is to really bolster yourself. And sometimes that maybe like recognizing, like, in that kind of twinging me the wrong way, or just making me aware of what kind of a fellow Richard Wagamis might be. Just be from what I'm reading of his stuff. So it's like he's a complex human being. But it's interesting at the end of that thing saying, like, regardless of his politics, I consider him a hero. There's like people that you encounter who have that spark of life, that have that fire, that you have to kind of respect, and kind of have to kind of aspire to yourself. And so, they've talked about Trudeau. He has an earlier story about talking about meeting Muhammad Ali very briefly. And, just like, wow, that kind of that fight, that vigor, that kind of that power, really, really kind of coming through. So, Trudeau and Muhammad Ali, those are pretty major, powerful men, which, I think Wagamis is definitely somebody who's looking for father figures, looking for role models throughout his life to kind of build himself up that way as well, because he had to build it himself. And yeah, so I may have argued myself. There are parts that I find a little bit kind of grate on me, but overall, still, it's clicking. These stories are clicking along and are really kind of conjuring a portrait of this guy, of a self-portrait of this fellow. And we're clicking back every once in a while to that cabin in Kamloops, and how that kind of conjures up memories for him. I really can see this as sort of a weekly or something column that he might have written, and then this is all collected together. That sort of, there's the slightly kind of that folksy, hard, plain speaking kind of persona that we're getting, when I'm aware of its persona, I think, in a way. Which isn't to say it's false. It's just, it's definitely constructed. Yeah. Which doesn't mean it's false. All right. More videos later.